Rain hammered the rooftop like 1,000 desperate fists the night everything changed for Ethan Walker. He had just put his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, to bed when an unexpected knock shattered the quiet of his small, dimly lit home. He wasn't expecting anyone, and at that hour close to midnight, nobody should have been out in that kind of storm. Opening the door, Ethan froze as the silhouette came into focus, his boss, Madison Hale, standing drenched to the bone, her blouse plastered to her skin, her eyes wide with something between fear and devastation. A powerful gust of wind swept Rain across the doorway, but she didn't seem to notice. She just stared at him, her breath shaking, and then, in a voice fragile enough to break its own echo, she whispered, "Am I beautiful?" Ethan swallowed hard, stunned, and answered without hesitation, "You are. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps more people find these stories." From the moment he said those words, Ethan felt the world tilt into a direction he never expected. Madison wasn't just his boss, she was the kind of woman who moved through corporate hallways with confidence sharp enough to cut through steel. She was respected, feared, admired, untouchable. Yet here she was, trembling on his doorstep, soaked by the storm, and stripped of the armor the world expected her to wear. Ethan stepped aside and ushered her in before the cold swallowed her whole. His heart raced with confusion. She never came to this part of town. She never showed up unannounced. And she certainly never appeared so fragile. He fetched a towel, and an old hoodie Lily had picked for him as a birthday gift, a faded gray thing too big for her, but warm enough to chase the chill from Madison's bones. When she slipped it on, her breath steadied a little, though her hands still shook. Ethan watched her carefully, uncertain if speaking would help or hurt. Madison stared at the steam rising from the cup of tea he'd set in front of her, her wet hair clinging to her face. It struck him how different she looked without perfect lighting, perfect makeup, perfect posture. She looked human, breakable, even. The silence stretched until she finally whispered, barely audible, that she'd driven away from a charity gala one she was hosting because she had overheard 2 board members mocking her behind her back. They called her cold, emotionless, unlovable. A pretty face leading a company she was too damaged to manage. She said she didn't know why she had come to Ethan's house, specifically only that something pulled her there. That somehow she felt safe. Ethan felt his chest tighten with sympathy. He knew what it was like to feel broken. It had been 3 years since he lost his wife to a sudden illness. The ache in his heart still lived under his ribs like a stubborn bruise. Some days he managed, other days he felt as though he was crumbling quietly, unseen. Maybe Madison had sensed that in him. Maybe broken people recognized each other more easily than anyone realized. Over the next hour, Madison slowly opened up, not with polished corporate speeches, but with raw confessions. She told him about the constant pressure she lived under, the loneliness she masked with long hours and flawless presentation, the belief that no one saw her beyond her role. Ethan listened without judgment, something she wasn't used to. And the more she talked, the more her voice steadied, as if the very act of being heard without interruption was stitching her wounds together. As the storm pressed harder against the windows, Ethan found himself studying her in a way that startled him. She wasn't the intimidating CEO right now. She was a woman who desperately needed to know she mattered, that she was more than the image people saw, that she wasn't as alone as she felt. For the first time since his wife passed, Ethan felt something stir inside him that wasn't grief or exhaustion, something warm and unfamiliar, like hope knocking tentatively at the door of his heart. When Madison finally asked that haunting question, "Am I beautiful?" it wasn't vanity, he realized. It was fear. Fear that she wasn't enough. Fear that she didn't deserve tenderness. So he looked her directly in the eyes and said, "You are." And what he meant was kinder, deeper. "You are beautiful because you are allowed to be human." The words broke her. She didn't sob loudly, her tears simply spilled, silent and steady, like the rain outside. Ethan gently took the tea from her trembling hands before she dropped it. She didn't need to be alone tonight, not emotionally, not mentally. So he offered her the couch, covered her with a soft quilt, and stayed nearby until she fell into an exhausted sleep, her breathing finally unfurling into something peaceful. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains and reality settled heavily between them. Madison woke with a jolt. Startled and embarrassed, Ethan reassured her that nothing inappropriate happened, and she exhaled in visible relief. She thanked him for his kindness, her cheeks flushed, her usually sharp demeanor softened by gratitude. Before leaving, she paused at the door, turned back, and gave him a look he couldn't quite decipher, something tender, uncertain, maybe even longing. Days passed. Work returned to its fast-paced rhythm, but something between them had undeniably shifted. Madison wasn't cold with him anymore. She wasn't distant. She stopped him in hallways to ask about his day. She brought surprise cupcakes for Lily, who adored her instantly. She laughed a real, warm laugh when Ethan teased her about her inability to enjoy cheap coffee. The company noticed the change too. Rumors swirled, but Ethan didn't care. What mattered was that Madison seemed lighter. She carried herself with new gentleness, as though she finally believed she didn't have to shoulder everything alone. Yet not everything was perfect. Ethan was still a single dad juggling bills, schedules, and the constant fear of failing his daughter. Madison was still a powerful CEO battling scrutiny from every direction. Their lives were complicated. The differences between them were oceans wide. And still, somehow, they kept drifting toward each other. One Friday evening, after most employees had left, Madison stopped by Ethan's office. She looked nervous, almost shy, something he'd never witnessed before. She admitted she had been thinking a lot about that night, about how he saw her when she felt invisible, about how she hadn't felt that safe in years. Ethan felt heat rush to his face but didn't look away. She told him she admired his strength as a father, his kindness, his honesty. She confessed she had grown to care about him and Lily more than she expected. Ethan knew the dangers of mixing work and emotion, but he couldn't deny what had blossomed inside him. Still, he hesitated. He wasn't sure he deserved another chance at love. He wasn't sure Madison deserved the burden of his grief, but when she gently touched his hand, something in him surrendered. Their relationship didn't erupt into fireworks or sweeping declarations. It grew in quiet, steady ways like morning sunlight creeping slowly across a cold floor. Madison often visited Ethan's home, finding comfort in the warm chaos of Lily's laughter. Ethan found himself smiling again genuinely, fully something he hadn't done in a long time. Madison, despite her wealth and influence, was the one who seemed most grateful for the simplicity Ethan offered, but not everyone approved. Some board members whispered that a CEO shouldn't be involved with a lower-level employee. Some questioned her judgment. But Madison, strengthened by Ethan's unwavering belief in her, refused to let fear dictate her life anymore. She stood firm, defended her decisions, and reminded everyone that leadership wasn't about perfection, it was about heart. Months passed. Ethan began to realize something profound. Love didn't always come once. Sometimes life offered a second chance disguised as a storm at midnight. Madison, in turn, discovered that even the strongest people needed someone to tell them they were beautiful not for their achievements, not for their image, but for their humanity. One evening, as autumn leaves drifted across the porch, Madison stood at the same doorstep where she'd broken down months earlier. Ethan watched her from inside, remembering the trembling woman he had brought in from the rain. But this Madison was different. Her eyes held courage now. She reached out and brushed her fingers against his cheek, telling him softly that he had changed her life. He told her she had changed his too. Their love didn't erase their struggles. It helped them face those struggles together. Ethan still woke some nights missing his late wife, and Madison still battled moments of insecurity, but they learned to hold each other through the hard days and celebrate the good ones with grateful hearts. And somewhere along the way, Lily began calling Madison Maddie, a nickname that sounded suspiciously like family. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more emotional stories. Your support truly means the world. Special request: comment below with hope is real if you believe that everyone deserves a second chance at love and healing. In the end, love didn't arrive in perfect packaging for Ethan or Madison. It showed up soaking wet on a stormy night, trembling on a doorstep, asking a simple question that held a lifetime of hurt. And because one man chose kindness, because he chose to listen, to see her, to answer with honesty, they found something extraordinary, something people spend lifetimes searching for. They found each other. And sometimes that's all any of us really need.